Okay, so a bit late to the party, but recently the LECT Misfits Gaming announced that they would be replacing their starter AD carry B-Boy with EU sensation Kobbe, previously on Splice, which rebranded to Mad Lions and dropped the entire roster besides mid laner Humanoid. Now, Kobbe went to NA to play for TSM for the first half of this season, and has since been replaced on TSM by Doublelift, NA's star AD carry player, after he was dropped from Team Liquid. It's a whole nother story that I'm probably not going to get onto. Today I wanted to talk about this trade. B-Boy for Kobbe. Or Kobbe for B-Boy, rather. Was it a good idea? From a coaching standpoint, it makes a lot more sense when you sit and think about it. Now, on the surface, Misfits in spring did very well, with a roster of 3 European rookies, their veteran mid laner, and their semi-veteran top laner. They single-handedly fell giants, to say. They beat the likes of G2 Esports, Origin, who are in other games under the likes of Astralis, and have really made a name for themselves after 2 really poor years with teams that look like they will do well, and it's like crash and burn. Last year with their super team of Soaz, Maxlore, Febiven, Han Summer, and Gorilla, eventually subbing in their entire academy roster to take their place, and still finding more success than with the veterans. And the year before that with Alfari, Maxlore, Senkux, Han Summer, and Mickey-X. Mickey-X, who has now found a lot of success with G2, and Senkux, who's just kind of fallen off the map in terms of European League of Legends. But again, today we're here to talk about the trade in current AD carry. So, on the surface, as I said, it looks worrying, considering you find so much success with the likes of B-Boy in the spring split, and you've now come to replace him with an EU veteran. The whole demographic for this Misfits roster was building up rookie talent around their single veteran player, Febiven. Febiven is a good player. Febiven is the great shot caller that Misfits needed for this first half of the split, but with the likes of Razork and Denik around him, he's going to shine. They are both individually very talented and have previous affiliations with each other, having both come from the Vodafone Giants from the Superliga, the Spanish league. And now I've got Dan in the top lane. Very competent player, usually able to just farm himself into a game and make an impact. And B-Boy. B-Boy was always a bit of a soft spot for Misfits, both as an org and as a fan base. When it was first announced that Han Summer had left to join Rogue, there was uproar because nobody thought Misfits would get an AD carry that could live up to Han Summer. Now, for the past 2 years, I believe 3 of the 4 splits, Misfits never made playoffs. Now, with this super, really scary rookie roster that they've accumulated this year, which included B-Boy, they made it to playoffs. Granted, they didn't go far. They went down 3-1 to Rogue in the quarterfinals. But by no means does that mean they're out. If they had stuck with B-Boy, regardless of him taking up the import slot and not natively talking English, I believe that if they'd have kept at it, they would have found more success in summer. Now, going against the whole demographic of having a team built around your one veteran really falls apart when you pick up another veteran, which is what they've done with Kobbe. Don't get me wrong, again, I don't think this is a bad move. If anything, I think it's going to let the roster shine even more, because they have an AD carry they know they can rely on for late game insurance, whereas before that was placed entirely on Dan. I don't think B-Boy's a bad player, and I don't think that he played bad in the spring split. He wasn't the greatest of AD carries, but he definitely made his presence known, especially towards the end of the split, where he had some real scary performances on the likes of Varus. But when you sit down and think about how this move, how Kobbe coming to Misfits is going to help them in the summer split and make them a team to compete with the best. Maybe even challenge Origin for the 3rd spot as the top 3 teams in Europe. Because we all know that Fnatic and G2 are not moving. At least, not based on what we've seen. So, with Kobbe, he's always been a superstar AD carry in EU. He's always been able to contend with the likes of Upset, Perks, and Reckless, who are 3 of Europe's best AD carries. Granted, Europe is a stacked region for AD carry. There are very few names that don't really make much sense. Comp with Vitality is one of them. Don't really see much from him. But all the other AD carries you can name and call good. European AD carry talent is stacked up here. Now, the reason I say this move is not a bad choice, nor is going to harm Misfits come summer, is having an AD carry like Kobbe in that position, with the likes of Denick, who loves to roam. Kobbe can hold his own. Bvoy could, but he always opted into a losing lane. Denick no longer has to roam. Denick can focus around helping Kobbe, making sure that he can secure a lead in lane, because Kobbe is a much more offensive player than Bvoy. That's what this team has been looking for. Offense. You've seen it with Razork, you've seen it with Featherman, and you've seen it with Denick. Dan cannot afford to be offensive, and he is usually the weak point pinpointed by other teams to attack over and over again, and he can survive. He has proved that he can survive such encounters. Bvoy, however, if you were to throw ganks at him over and over, he died eventually. Regardless of who he was playing, he died eventually. But with an aggressive AD carry like Kobbe, Razork can look to a lot more than just help mid lane. Razork can look to secure a lead for both of these lanes, which is in no means a bad thing. Kobbe is going to bring not only his veteran ideas to the roster, but he's also going to be able to play with some of Europe's best right now. Razork, Rookie of the Split winner. Featherman, there was talks of him going up for MVP of the split. Denick, who has shown time and time again that he can stand up and do what the team needs him to do. And Dan, who, as I'm sure many people remember last season, had stellar performances on the likes of Jax and Gangplank. The real worry here was that by replacing Bvoy, you've essentially brought another voice into the team that players don't know. And that it's another veteran voice. And I think a lot of what went wrong last year for Misfits is they had 5 veteran voices all trying to give ideas, and in the end it crashed and burned. For no reason other than the fact that they all had different ideas. They all had different experiences. None of them were going on the same basis, which is different for this roster. But now that Kobbe's been brought in, we don't know how it'll perform. We know Bvoy, even though he didn't natively speak English, was trying his best based on a video released by Misfits under their Mischief series. They did an episode dedicated to Bvoy and his adaptations to European life. Now, he's obviously working with a full English-speaking team. He was learning English through the company, and it seemed like he was doing very well. But he did say that he was struggling to understand people's accents. You have the thick accents of Razork, Featherman, and Denick being Spanish, Danish, and Czech. Dan has a mix of different accents because he's come from multiple places in Europe. Let's be honest here. He's lived in multiple places. He has residency in 2 European countries. But if Bvoy can't understand what his jungler or his support or his mid laner are saying, where do you stand? Do you really have a roster that can stand up to the best when your AD carry can't even understand what's being said? With bringing Kobbe in, you've removed this issue. You've brought in a player hungry to do well, which we learnt last year with him on Splice, and again with him going to NA, going to TSM, one of NA's most revered teams. It wasn't Cloud9 and it wasn't Team Liquid, the 2 best teams, but it was TSM. It was one of their revered teams. And Spring Split has shown us that TSM can perform. Them dropping Kobbe is a whole nother can of worms that I'm not looking to open. But we saw Kobbe had consistent performances. Kobbe was hungry to win, as he always has been. If you can bring that hunger to the Misfits roster, where do you go from there? You're looking at a top 3 team. And that's why I think that from a coaching standpoint, even though this doesn't make much sense on the surface, it's the best idea they could have had. Now, within the next couple of days, I'm going to be bringing on a special guest to talk this over with me. Someone quite close to the Misfits community. We'll see what they have to say. We'll see if their views do indeed match up with my own, and whether or not we can come to the agreement that we are now in contention for top 3. Until then, well, I'll be around. Bye bye.